first graders. All right. I'm thinking we might finish it today, maybe. So if you remember, the Brontosaurus just said, I think you'd be a better pet for me. Chapter 10. Lulu's eyes were two round O's of amazement. She tried to speak, but at first no words came out. Then, finally, she was able to say in a squeaky, amazed kind of voice, "I don't think I heard what you just said, Mr. B." "You did indeed," the Brontosaurus replied. "Well, if I did," Lulu's voice was back to being its old bossy self again. "Well, if I did, I've got some news for you. A person has a pet. An animal is a pet. A person can't be an animal's pet ever." "And I have some news for you," the Brontosaurus said to Lulu, except that he spoke more politely than Lulu had done. "You're about to be the first person ever to be an animal's pet. Congratulations, and once again, happy birthday." He reached out a hand, or whatever you want to call it, and gently scooped Lulu off the forest floor. He then plucked her gently down where his back meets his neck. "Hold on tight, little pet," he said to Lulu. "I'll pull off some leaves from the top of the trees for your breakfast, and then I'm taking you home to live with me." "No!" yelled Lulu. No! A billion zillion times no!" Yes, the Brontosaurus replied. "I'll feed you and pat you and play with you and treat you very nicely. And all I'll expect from you is to sit and roll over and fetch a ball and do cute tricks." What did he think she was? Some kind of dog girl? I really don't know. I can't read a dinosaur's mind. Lulu thought about screeching and throwing herself on the forest floor, except the forest floor was a long way down. She thought about squeezing the dinosaur dead, except that she needed both hands to hang on to his neck. She thought about swinging her suitcase and bonking him over the head, except she'd left her suitcase under a tree. And she couldn't stomp on his foot because his feet were too far from his back where he plunked her. Then Lulu started to think that the only thing farther from where the Brontosaurus had plunked her was her home, where her mom and dad were waiting, her very own home, where no one, not even when she was being a pain, which was most of the time, had ever expected her to sit and roll over and fetch and do cute tricks. "I want to go to my house," Lulu told the Brontosaurus, then added, in a lot less bossier voice, "Please let me go back to my house, Mr. B." This was maybe the very first time in Lulu's entire life that she, without being told, had used the P word. And yet the Brontosaurus shook his head no. "Once you get used to it," he kindly told Lulu, "I truly believe that you'll like being a pet." Lulu imagined being a pet in the house of this Brontosaurus and never seeing her mom or dad again. She imagined eating leaves and doing cute tricks. And she said to herself that if only she could turn today into yesterday, she wouldn't go looking for dinosaurs in the forest, and she wouldn't say, "Foo on you," to her mom and her dad. She was feeling especially sorry that she had ever said "foo on you" to her mom and dad. Chapter 11. The Brontosaurus pulled leaves off of the trees and was offering them to Lulu. She grabbed them and threw them angrily away. A simple no thank you will do," the Brontosaurus said to Lulu, "and I really liked that please you used before." "So please, let me please go home," yelled Lulu. "Your yelling is hurting my ears," said the dinosaur. But I have to admit that even if you'd asked me softly and sweetly, I still would want to keep you here with me. I've been lonely, and a pet is a very good thing. For hours and hours and hours, from early morning till just past noon, Lulu kept telling the Brontosaurus he had to let her go home. And the Brontosaurus kept telling Lulu no. He also kept assuring her that he'd do his absolute best to make her happy. He spoke in such a kind and nice and polite and patient voice that after a while, Lulu was talking, not yelling. And after a while, she was talking softly and sweetly. And pretty soon after that, she started to cry. Yes, Lulu started to cry. And it wasn't very often that Lulu cried. She'd rather screech till the light bulbs burst and all that other stuff. But right now, she didn't feel screechy. She felt teary. And so she cried and cried and cried, soaking the Brontosaurus with her tears. He patiently waited as Lulu continued soaking him and the forest floor with her tears. He patiently waited some more, and then he said, "I'm sorry I'm making you cry, little pet, but I won't be changing my mind. Would you like a tissue?" Lulu now understood. No matter how hard she cried and how nice this dinosaur was, he was determined to keep her as his pet. And she now understood that if she was determined to not be his pet, she would have to escape. She cried just a little bit longer, but while she was crying on the outside, she was on the inside, making a getaway plan. Sniffing a watery sniff, Lulu said to the Brontosaurus, "Thank you, Mr. B. I do need some tissues. If you'll just let me down on the forest floor for a minute, I'm sure I can find a box of them in my suitcase." The Brontosaurus lowered his head and neck to the floor of the forest. Lulu slid off and stood up with a small smile. She walked to her suitcase, opened it, poked around for a while, and found, are you surprised, a big box of tissues. But instead of taking the tissues out, she put her sleeping bag in, snapped her suitcase shut, and started running. The Brontosaurus stood stiff and still, as if he'd been glued to the ground. And then he started running after Lulu. But Lulu had darted off the path into the heart of the forest, into a part of the forest where the trees grew so close together that a creature as huge as the dinosaur could not fit. She zigged and she zagged and she zigged and she zagged through the close together trees, while the Brontosaurus looked for spaces to squeeze through. He was trying his hardest to catch her, as hard as a mountain-sized creature can try. But she was leaving him farther and farther behind. "Come back, little pet, come back!" Lulu could hear him calling, first loudly, then softer and softer. "Come back, little pet, I know you'll be happy with me. Come back, little pet." His voice grew even softer, and soon she could not hear his voice anymore. Since Lulu could not hear his voice anymore, she stopped running and started walking. She tromped through the forest in silence, heading home. But she wasn't swinging her suitcase, and she wasn't singing her song. And although she very much wanted to see her mom and dad again, and very much wanted to not be a pet, she kind of felt bad. She felt kind of bad about the Brontosaurus. And so do I, because even though I'm the person writing this story, I don't like leaving him all alone, sadly calling, "Come back, little pet, come back." I think we're going to stop there for today.